I went to start my Forerunner, and the second I put my hand on my steering wheel, I hear mind speak, which that sounds absolutely crazy. I never thought I'd ever experience that, but I hear these three words: I see you, just like that. Very was not my voice, was not me. It felt I felt violated. So my name is Josh. I host a podcast called Misters Unknown, and I'm born and raised in the Ozarks. Spent my whole life here. The Ozarks are a pretty unique region. A lot of times people don't think about them, but they're older than the Appalachians. There's a lot of history here. A lot of strange stuff happens in the Ozarks. So I've experienced a lot throughout the years, and I love living here. It's a pretty special place. So all I knew about Bigfoot growing up, when you did like me, I was born in '79, and as a kid in the '80s, Bigfoot meant a monster truck. That's all I knew. And I remember the first time that the actual Bigfoot, came up is we were supposed to go to my grandpa's house and watch a show about Bigfoot, and I thought it was literally the monster truck. And I get there, and it was the Legend of Boggy Creek, and it absolutely freaked me out because I had no idea what this thing was. So that was my introduction to Bigfoot. But fast forward about a year later, I was 14 years old. My dad had bought a piece of land and built a house, and they had left me at home, and that's when I had my very first encounter. And so I was walking from my kitchen to my living room, and it was dusk, kind of dark. Um, and I remember walking up to the sliding glass windows my dad had, and it was really rural. There wasn't a whole lot of houses around at the time. And I look over to the right, and there's this black figure standing about, I don't know, 50, 60 yards away. And I'm just stopped dead in my track, 14 years old, didn't know what this thing was, thought it was a person. And so to my horror, this thing like came up to the back deck of the house. And what's strange about that is it glided up. It didn't just walk. There was no gate. It was like it glided up. Biggest thing I'd ever seen. Just broad, massive black thing standing in front of me. And I locked eyes with this thing, and I froze. Didn't know what to do. I'm standing there. But the thing that sticks out to me about this thing is there was just pure hate emanating from this thing. Like I knew it hated me. That's one of the things I remember. But as I'm standing there, this thought drops in my mind to go get my dad's shotgun. And so it was a 410 shotgun. It was upstairs. So I don't know why that popped into my head, but I just knew I had to go get my dad's gun. Not that it would have done anything, but so I go upstairs, I get it. My dad had told me as a kid, if you ever get threatened, load a shotgun, they're going to leave you alone. Nobody wants to mess with that. So that's what I did. I came downstairs with a single shot shotgun, and I put it's probably bird shot, buckshot, put it in there. And as soon as I clicked the gun, this thing turned around and just glided off into the woods like it was nothing. So that was my crash course into Bigfoot at 14, and I buried it, for years. Had a couple other encounters, and that's kind of what led me to starting the podcast. And spent 17 years in law enforcement, seen a lot of weird, strange things. But about 7 years ago, I was coming up the hill from where I used to live at, and on Highway 64, and look over to the right. It was at night, 11 o'clock at night, and stand on the side of the road. There's this white, massive creature, and the thing jumps over the hood of my car. Going, I was like 55. I was in a Toyota Corolla, and it took one step and was off into this ravine. I knew the ravine. My uncle had built a church there, so I take off down in there. The thing about it that's strange is there was no footprints, no trees broken, nothing, and it was massive. It took up the whole windshield of my car. And what's strange about it is I had buried all these other encounters, and after that happened, all these memories started to come back, and I had all these things pop up. And so I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's like, "Man, you got to start a podcast." So that's kind of how all that came to fruition and happened, and here I am. So, you're a trained observer, so you notice things that probably other people don't. You look for patterns. You look for what we call trace evidence. I'm always trying to think one step ahead, trying to figure out what's going to happen. So it changes your perspective on how you see the world. And once you kind of know what's out there, everything changes. And then when you put Bigfoot in the mix, it changes everything. And I've got really severe ADHD, so my brain's just always going, and I notice things people don't, little details and things. So it did have an impact on how I saw things and how kind of I approach the way this stuff is and the way I look at it. Um, Kind of opens up your mind, and you're kind of more open to believing in things that maybe the public won't, most people won't, because you've experienced so much. So I'd say that's probably the biggest impact it's had on me and how I see things and how I look and approach. So I think that there is something to being tagged with these creatures, and I think that once you have had an encounter, you're marked in a way. I don't even like to use the word tag. That comes up on the show a lot, like because I think once you've had one, you're gonna have multiple encounters happen. I don't know why that is. I mean, I've got tons of theories. I've thought about it a lot, but I know this that my dad had a UFO encounter when I was 5. I was in the car when it happened. I didn't see it, and then I had this encounter at 14. I saw the thing one other time between the last time I saw it and then 3 months ago I had a Dogman encounter. And if you sit and you tell somebody that, they're gonna think you're crazy, right? Like you're nuts. But if you know, you know. And so there's got to be something to that. I've looked at bloodlines. I've looked at the gift of discernment. I'm a Christian. I have different things that I believe, and I think through a biblical lens. But there's something that tags you, marks you, whatever words you want to use. Because there's got to be something. Because so many people I talk to that come on the show have had multiple encounters. So either everybody's lying or there's something going on. And I don't know what that is. As a Christian, coming at this thing at a biblical perspective, it's got to fit in that context for me. And this comes up, and it surprises me that how many preachers and pastors have no clue about this. They don't want to talk about it. So I've kind of taken on that mantle, and my channel's about that. They call me the Bigfoot therapist, which is kind of funny. But I help people sit through their trauma. But I look at this stuff. A lot of it for me goes back to Genesis chapter 6. And I tell people all the time, have you even read your Bible? There's so many weird, strange things in there. But I've kind of went back and forth, had a lot of different theories. But I used to think that maybe these were demons. Um, but then now I kind of think more that they're a fallen angel. And there's a couple of reasons why. Is uh, the Bible says that God's gifts are without repentance. So that means if these angels fell, they still have the abilities that they have, right? That didn't get taken away. And then also I think that it also says that you can entertain an angel unaware, which means they're shapeshifters, which is, it's so weird to say, to come out of your mouth. So I do think that there's some sort of fallen angel, Nephilim hybrid thing possibly. But the statement I've landed on, and I talk about it a lot, is when they're flesh and blood, they're flesh and blood, and when they're not, they're not. That is if you backed me into a corner and had me explain it, that's what I'd tell you. I mean, and I'm open to whatever, but that's just where I've kind of landed with it. And you're never going to get answers, I think. We're taking educated guesses, and you're trying to figure it out. But I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who's had a lot of encounters that tries to figure this out. Dogman is its own thing. I think people can go back and forth about Bigfoot, whether it's evil or good. Like, I mean, you can go either way, because sometimes people have encounters that are good. Bigfoot helps them out, and then sometimes they're like mine. It was not a good encounter, but I think Dogman is just evil. I call them fear eaters, is what I call them. And I never thought I'd ever experience this. I mean, I just never thought in a million years that I would. But about 3.5 months ago, I had a guy come on the show. His name was Levon, and had a lot of weird stuff happen on his property. So I interviewed him in person, and he had some skinwalker activity. He had just a lot of strange stuff on the property. So I interviewed him, and then we went out to the property, and we didn't get there till about 6 o'clock, dusk, which looking back was probably really not smart. I should have planned that better, because his whole thing is like all this stuff starts happening at dusk, right? So we're out there on the property, and when you're in law enforcement, you learn to feel when things change. And if you've ever been in the woods, you can sense a shift. I don't know what else word to use but that. But so we're out there. It's in the middle of nowhere, and I got what I call like jello legs. Everything's just like there's something off. You can tell that you're being watched. And I'm just out there filming and just got my camera filming different stuff. And I'm not trying to capture this thing. I didn't go look for it. So we're out there, and there's a spot we stopped at first, and then we went to this little cabin, and I set my camera on the ground, and we're walking and talking, and a couple weird things happen. Is I do video production. That's what I do, and so I know how to work this equipment. But all my audio stuff stopped, quit working. The battery's drained, which is kind of a telltale sign when something weird's going to happen. My camera's sitting flat on the ground. I've got a really wide base. Something kicks my camera over. You can see it tilt over while we're talking. The audio cuts out. So all this stuff's happening, And my brain's like, hey, something's wrong. You need to leave. Something's wrong. So we're sitting there talking, and he's like, hey, man, it's probably time to go. And I'm like, yeah, we need to go. And so we took two vehicles, and he gets in his truck, and I say, hey, man, I'm going to stop and take a leak before we go. And so I'm over to the passenger side of my vehicle, and there's a tree line probably 30 yards, 20 yards from me off to the left. So I'm doing my thing, and I look up, and over there, standing there, is this black creature. Now, I've seen Bigfoot before. This was not that. And it was like about 6 foot tall, probably. And this thing is breathing, and it has this up and down breathing motion, and its back's to me, right? It's kind of caught to the side, jet black hair. It's got pointed ears, and I'm like, this can't be what I'm seeing. There's no way. So I'm seeing it, and the thing cocks its head and looks at me. And one thing that happens to a lot of police officers, we trauma dump. As soon as stuff's happened, our brain will bury trauma so we can do what we have to do. So I've got some gaps in my memory from the time that I leave there till I get in my truck. Later on, I had this come back to me, and I remember reaching for my duty weapon, but it wasn't there, not a cop anymore. So I went for that. I didn't have it. I went and got in my car. I went to start my Forerunner, and the second I put my hand on my steering wheel, I hear mind speak, which that sounds absolutely crazy. I never thought I'd ever experience that, but I hear these three words: I see you. Just like that. Was not my voice, was not me. It felt, I felt violated, right? Like I didn't feel like that was not my voice. And so I instantly turned around, and it was probably 5 minutes or so to the gate. It was a locked gated property. So I'm going, and I roll all my windows up. I lock my doors. But with a Forerunner, if you know, they have a back sliding window, right? Yeah, that was down the whole time. I didn't realize that until I got out of there, that whole thing was down the whole time. But this thing would come about 10 feet away from me, pace me, and then walk back out. It did that the whole time out. So I get out, Levon's getting out of his truck, and I'm like, hey man, I didn't even remember what I told him. I just was so shook up. And so the weird thing is, to me, another weird thing is there's no cell phone service out there. About 30 minutes into that trip, you lose cell phone service. Like nothing. I get in my Forerunner, we lock the gate, I wait there with him, we leave. I get a text that says, are you okay? Just randomly came through. I called the person, I talked to them the whole way out, the whole way home. Total weird. I don't understand what to do with that. But I just can tell you for 3 weeks, not 3 weeks, for 3 days, I couldn't sleep. And I was with a client about 4 or 5 days later. He didn't know what's going on. And he's like, man, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And I don't get shook up. I'm just, you ask anybody, I'm a steady, even killed guy. But it really shook me up. And it was completely different than any of the Bigfoot stuff I had. Like my Bigfoot encounters, there was a lot of, I don't even know what word to use, like primal fear. More than that, I could tell this thing hated me. It was not happy that I was there, but this was different. So I think they are different. I don't know what the correlation is, but I just know from my perspective, Dogman's pure evil, and hopefully I never see it again. So another weird thing that happened is I live above a coffee shop, a really cool studio spot. It's a big loft apartment, 3 huge windows, and the building was probably built in the 50s, and so it's really tall, and the windows are really tall, and they're big windows. And spent a lot of time in there, and there's never been a handprint on the window. There's never been anything like that. But about a week prior to this, I'm sitting there watching TV, and the window's back behind my TV, and I look, and there's an abnormally large handprint plastered on the outside of that window a week before I saw this thing. So if you take that and the fact that it says, I see you, now I don't think it was telling me I see you in the moment. I think it was more of like, because I do this podcast, I talk to people every day. I think they're telling me, I know who you are, I see you. But that's just kind of some things I've put together. I could be wrong, I don't know, but that's just another weird thing in the cryptid world. That what do you do with it? So the Ozarks are, they're, if you talk to some people, they'll tell you they're the oldest. They're not a mountain range, but I call them mountains. The oldest mountain range in the U.S. Northern continent. They don't really know how they were formed. Like, it's kind of a weird thing, but there is something different here. The woods here are different. There's a strange feeling here. When you walk in the woods, it's got a completely different feel. A lot of the times, the encounters here in the South tend to be a little bit more aggressive. I really think that they're, based on what region you're at, you're going to have a different type of encounter. I don't know why that is. I joke about it because I'm like, it's the humidity. They're ticked off because the humidity is so bad. But I think that there is something to that. I think they have a tendency to lean more aggressive, maybe more evil. I get a lot of flack sometimes on my channel because I do refer to these things as being evil. I'm not saying they all are and every encounter is bad, but a lot of times here it seems to be that way. I've had multiple Dogman encounters sent to me. I've had a couple of them on the show from this region, from this area. So something's going on in the Ozarks. There's a lot of cave systems here. I think they travel through the cave systems. It's just an old region with a lot of strange stuff that's happened here, and it's something you have to experience to really understand. I think there's a lot of people that aren't aware of what's happening in the Ozarks. So many people today just walk around with their head in the sand. They're not paying attention. They don't watch. I really think that there's a correlation between missing 411 and some of the people that go missing in cryptids. Not all of them, obviously, but I think there's some. We've had a few people that go missing here. It has a reputation for people getting lost. It's such a vast area. It's easy to get lost and turn around here. The woods are so thick. But I think as a general public view, a lot of people just don't know what's going on, or maybe they don't want to know, or maybe they know and they just don't talk about it. But yeah, I think that's definitely a thing here for sure. I will say this: if you're either sitting on an encounter, want to have an encounter, you're curious, one of the things I ask my guests at the end of every show is like, what would you say to somebody that is sitting on an encounter that doesn't want to talk about it? I approach this stuff from a traumatic point of view because it is traumatizing to see something the whole world tells you does not exist and you're seeing it. And trauma, if you sit on that trauma, it'll affect your health, your mental state, all these things. The best advice that I can give you is share it with somebody. Sometimes it's not going to be your family. They're not going to believe you, but find a podcast, find somebody that's in this world that can share and get it off your chest. It helps with trauma. Also, be careful what you ask for because once you've seen one, it changes everything. So I'd caution you on that. And also, too, I'll tell you the thing that comes up on my channel a lot. Every time somebody has an encounter, it's bad, they invoke the name of Jesus, these things leave. So that's the advice I would take with you. Carry that in your back pocket. Be careful what you ask for and talk to somebody because it does help. So you can check my podcast out on YouTube and Spotify. It's just Mysteries Unknown Podcast. I drop an episode every Monday and do a live show on Thursday. So check it out.